Hello everyone, welcome to the Literary and Jury Charge portion of the 100 class. We're going to start off with some defense opening statements. Okay, here we go. There have been several statements, as Mr. Kratz has already alluded to in his PowerPoint presentation, and this was in his opening statement. It starts off in a progression where Brendan says Stephen Avery killed Teresa Halbach, and it progresses to the point where he indicates he participated, and the state will argue to you later and offer evidence throughout the trial through the officers that they believe that this progression of audio taped statements from at the school, the videotaped statements at the police station, and then the final May 13 videotaped statement as a progression to the final truth. What we want you to consider, three things while you're watching these videotapes, and we agree, very powerful videotapes, very important videotapes, but like in a story, two different stories, there's a different perspective, a different theme. We want you to look at three things: corroboration, similar to what the state offered. They want you to look at what it corroborated. We want you to also focus on what is not corroborated. There are dozens of details that go uncorroborated in these statements. Corroboration simply means that there's something independent that can prove the statements are true. Some other independent source that suggests that what you heard is accurate. But there are dozens of instances where their details are uncorroborated. The second to consider is the inconsistencies. There are a number of inconsistencies throughout this progression of statements. When you watch these statements, take note of the different changes from one statement to the next. Simple. Details that seem to be mundane, unnecessary change from statement to statement. And though the state will try to suggest that it's an escalating progression from the first time they met with Brendan Dassey to the last time he talked to them, it's really a roller coaster ride of the truth, up and down. One statement says one thing, the next says the other, and it just goes that way throughout this progression. Some of the changes are not logical. Okay, I have an article here on metals. Actually, let me see here, I'm sorry. Wrong article. I've already read that to you in the past, so I apologize for that. Okay. Sorry about that. This is on earthquakes. I marked the wrong one. All right, so let me give you a word list. You're going to hear gigantic, cracking, earthquake, seismology, dislocation, propounded, scientists, South America, Japan, geological, volcanoes. Here's your article. Ready? The crust of the earth is constantly changing. Gigantic forces are continually at work reshaping the rocks of which the crust consists, moving them, bending them, and cracking them. We are not aware of this gradual process until the day an earthquake occurs. Earthquakes are a common occurrence. In some areas of the world, such as California, South America, and Japan, hundreds of quakes take place each day, but they are so minor that they are not even felt. The study of earthquakes is called seismology. The instrument to measure the intensity of an earthquake is the seismograph. The great majority of earthquakes are caused by rapid movements or dislocations of the Earth's underground structure. Several theories have been propounded regarding the reason for these dislocations occurring. Many scientists feel that quakes are a result of a natural geological process that interplays with the force of gravity. Certain earthquakes can be directly associated with volcanoes. The science of seismology is relatively new. Since changes in the Earth's crust take place over thousands of years, scientists have difficulty determining the cause and effect. All right. Moving on to our next article. I'm going to give you the legal terms and then I will read the paragraph to you. Ready? We've got check, payee, maker, exchange, draft, legal, note, negotiable, instrument, payer, collateral, tender, promissory, security, pledged. Now there is a brief for legal. It's L long E-L, leal. Okay, here's your paragraph. Ready? A check is an instrument used to transfer money from one person to the other. Any form of legal tender must be accepted as payment. A bill of exchange is called a draft. A promissory note is a written promise to pay a specified sum on a specific date. Security that is pledged for a note is called collateral. The payee is the person to whom a check, draft, or a note is made payable. The one who orders the payment is the maker. The one who pays the check, draft, or note is the payer. an article here on air pollution. Here we go. Ready? The air we breathe is filled with millions of particles of foreign substances, referred to as pollution. These substances are so minute that we don't even know we are breathing them. Smoke and gas are contributed to the air through fires, residential, industrial, and forest. Gas is also created by the deterioration of plant and animal remains. Nature itself is a large contributor to pollution. Sandstorms, dust storms, and volcanic eruptions introduce elements in the air that cause pollution. Pollens, mold, and bacteria are shed from plant life, and the wind lifts them into the atmosphere. Human beings, through the industrial process, have added factories and vehicles to our civilization, which emit smoke, gas, and chemicals. The word smog was coined by joining the words smoke and fog to describe the addition of solid particles in the air. In recent years, people have contaminated the air even further through radioactive fallout from the atomic bomb. The greatest threat now to air pollution is the waste created from nuclear power plants and nuclear bombs if it should escape into the atmosphere. All right. Moving right into some legal terms and a legal paragraph. So you're going to hear ownership. The brief for that is OIP. Plat, a plot of land. Abstract, liens. Title, common, conveyed, deed, easement, property, encumbrances, and tenancy. Here is your paragraph. Ready? Real property is the land and everything attached to it or growing from it. The ownership of real property is called title. Title to real property may be conveyed from one person to another through an instrument called a deed. Liens, encumbrances, and a history of the ownership of real property are found in the abstract. The map showing the division of the land into lots is called the plat. An easement conveys the right for land to be used for some other specified purpose. For example, utility companies may exercise their easement rights. There are two types of ownership of land and property: tenancy in common and joint tenancy. All right. I've got some legal opinion. Here we go. In this case, we are asked to consider whether the Copyright Act, which was drafted in 1909, applies to one of the recent innovations of the scientific community, cable network systems. The operations of cable network systems are based upon the use of other people's property. The issue here is whether, in this case, the owner of any copyrighted material should be compensated, and if so, how should he be compensated? From a technical standpoint, the question, or at least one important question, is whether the use constitutes a performance of the copyrighted material within the meaning of the Copyright Act. It is certainly an understatement to say that the Copyright Act, including the concept of performance, was not created with the development of cable network systems in mind. At the same time, the ramifications of any decision we may reach as to the copyright liability of cable network systems are very extensive. On the other hand, it can be predicted that the imposition of full liability upon all cable network systems operations could result in the demise of this new important instrument of mass communications, or in its becoming a tool of the powerful networks which already hold a substantial number of copyrights of original materials used in the television broadcasting industry. On the other hand, it is foreseen that a decision to the effect that cable network systems never infringes on the copyrights of the programs they carry would permit some systems to overpower local broadcasting stations, which must pay directly or indirectly for copyright licenses, and with which cable network systems is in increasing competition. The court recognizes the competing considerations, the complexity of any conceivable equitable solution, and the obvious desirability of ultimately reaching a solution. As you know, an important legal question is involved in this case. It must be resolved to satisfy the requirements of the Copyright Act and, at the same time, not discourage growth and development in this new field. I encourage each member of the panel to carefully weigh the evidence that has been presented to you and to weigh the obvious ramifications against the less obvious ramifications. I implore you to seek a solution that is not only applicable now, but applicable in similar situations in the future. I think that was more on the difficult side, so don't be frustrated if you found it was difficult. You can always go back and practice to it again. There are a few phrases that we covered or that I spoke of, and I will give those to you. They said in this case a couple of times. I write that as Nick, in this case, Nick. And then if I ever get the word Nick, I flag it. In that case is knack, N-A-K, knack. Again, if I get that word, I'll flag it. That comes up quite a bit. In this case, in that case, in the case. In the case is neck. So again, if I get neck, I'm going to flag neck because attorneys are constantly saying in this case, in that case, in the case. So those are my briefs for those. Nick, knack, neck. Now, if you want, you can flag those, and then the regular words, nick, knack, neck, you can just write those out. That's up to you. Okay, but I think you just have to weigh how often do you hear that? Do you hear neck more often, or do you hear in the case more often? Okay, so let's see. We also heard at the same time, T long A-M-T, tamped. Let's see, at the time, T-E-T. So again, has been, H-A final B. So if you use those phrases, it's just going to help you, especially with dense material like this. It's going to help you to keep up with the reader because you've got these tools to, shorten what would usually be a 4 or 5 stroke, phrase or word. You're bringing it down to 1. So it's going to make all the difference in the world. But you have to practice them so you're not hesitating and then losing words. Okay, so that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 100 class. Have a great day.